of course, are tree debris from hurricanes, tornadoes, storms. God knows in the metro Atlanta area that produces a huge amount of what we end up calling waste and cleanup. And these straight line thunderstorms seem to be getting worse and worse, so we're getting more and more of it. The other one is logs and grindings from tree removal and power company trimming, homeowner trimming, people just deciding to take down trees that are bad, or in some cases just not, because they need to take the tree down for whatever reason. And it's generating more and more of this debris and waste. Okay. So where does this all go? Well, most of the time it ends up in the landfill. Okay. Sadly, that's true. Go ahead. So this is an example of a 6 square mile Metro City's budget for fiscal year 2016. It generated 2,721.4 tons of tree waste that had to be deposited, and they had to pay per ton. So this little 4 square mile city in 2016 ended up paying $89,806.02 for the solid waste to be able to deposit all this stuff. Now that's a lot of money. And you keep adding that up, because 16, we didn't even have the hurricane that year. I think the hurricane was in 17. So you can multiply that. It's more and more expensive as land becomes more and more premium. So this is not a long-term plan, taking all this debris to a landfill. So how do we fix that? All right. So like I said, some of the metro counties have started, grinding it and turning it into mulch and giving it back to the citizens. We're selling it back to the citizens. Go ahead. Like I said, DeKalb County makes its mulch available for free. I think Gwinnett does too. Several larger places set up a huge mulch. You can go and pick it up, or they can charge you for a truckload of it to deliver to your home or your business. Either way, because they've got tons of this mulch and compost now. And some of it is composted for so long that it really makes a good planting mix. So I love seeing that. You just have to occasionally pick out some bits of trash, but they try and do a pretty good job of screening it. Okay. So if everybody at home is still tuned in, I hope. Yeah. These are the slides that you missed. Basically, the picture of the residents at the compost heaps that we have at some of the different landfills. Go ahead. That, like I said, some of them are available for free, like DeKalb. This is the one with Cobb County, where they partner with Tag Grinding Services, Inc., which is a vegetative waste recovery system. And this is the slide that we were talking about that gives you the actual numbers from Cobb. They started doing this in 1990. By 2008, they were diverting, like I said, about 2,209 tons of brush and yard waste, processing that into wood chips and mulch. And then part of that wasn't given away or taken away or sold to somebody who needed a lot of mulch was going to do the energy production for the power companies. Okay, so, and then I was talking about the wood reclamation center that you could do if you own lots in your jurisdiction. You can set that up. It doesn't take that much. A lot of these properties are already fenced in, so it wouldn't even take that much to go ahead and utilize an existing property that your city or county is already paying for. You're paying the taxes on it. You own it. Put it to work. And again, like I said, you can place additional monies into your tree bank if you have one for your jurisdiction, or use it to pay for the service for the personnel who'd be running it. Okay, go ahead to the next one. So, just the cost of a horizontal or vertical log splitter, and that's recent, is $1,379. That's a good investment. And one guy can operate that thing basically. Yeah, two, that makes it go even quicker. But this is what we're talking about. So it's not a huge outlay of money. It sure isn't paid stuff, right? So let's get it back out there and get it reused. All right, go ahead. So in Decatur, we create free mulch piles for all our citizens to use anytime they need it at our parks. Each park basically has mulch piles, and the citizens can just back up, load their truck, load their car, whatever, and take it home, put it on their gardens, around their trees. We encourage that, at least 2 inches mulch, right? Not creating mulch volcanoes, we've all heard about that. But, that really does help your trees, especially in our southern, climate that it just seems to be going up and up and up, And by the way, more mulch is not better as far as the trees are concerned. 2 inches is all you need. You do 4 and it starts really not being able to let the rain through because it's like they used to be. We're lucky if we get, that 2 inches comes in half an hour, boom, and it runs off and it's gone. So if your mulch is too thick, it's not going to soak in, it's not going to penetrate. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so you're putting out free mulch. Now the trick with this, we also use mulch in all of our playgrounds and dog parks. But you see this little border right here? That's really important because if you don't have a border in your playground area, that mulch, when that heavy rain does hit, is just going to float off. And then you're going to end up with more and more mulch, and it's going to be a nightmare. So these blocks really come in handy. Go to the next slide. They're called STUMP blocks, and they're made to look like slate, but you can get them in other colors. These work really well. It's got a beveled edge that stomps into the ground, and you can hit it with hammers or you can jump up and down on it. It just depends on what you want to do and how much ground is. But those sink in and interlock. You see how they lock together. And then you just use them all around the periphery of your mulch area. And it keeps that mulch from washing out. It's saved us a lot in parks and cost. Now we do refresh that mulch once it gets ground down, and that does happen eventually, especially with little feet running all over it every day and throwing mulch, whatever all kids do, or dogs, either one, digging. So you have to refresh that mulch every once in a while, but it's definitely worth it. It saves us a lot of money, and like I said, that mulch isn't going to the landfill, right? That tree debris isn't going to the landfill. So some of the other things you can do, lots and lots of companies are starting. You can partner with these companies who need wood to make its products. You've got hardwood flooring manufacturers, need that red oak and white oak, right? Firewood companies, furniture makers, wood pellet makers. That's a big thing up north. You're seeing more and more of those wood pellet stoves coming into the industry. But hardwood flooring, and then you've got the furniture makers are really doing some cool stuff with wood they're reutilizing from sites. Here's a list. This is the most up to date that I had. And I called several of them are actively taking wood. So this is my urban wood utilization directory. These companies actually take logs to make into sellable items. You got Atlanta Specialty Woods, Little River Milling and Artisan LLC, Mal Works, MAL, which is a Georgia chainsaw artist. You have Atlantic Fine Woods. Now, they're out here in the market for hickory or pecan, especially hickory. So if you get that, that's what they're really looking for. And then they're also accepting all types of logs, urban wood services, but they have to be 8-inch diameter minimum or more, with at least 6 foot in length. And they're in Palmetto, Georgia. So that's a real good one there. I put the link up and the phone number just in case. Then you also have the Jack Ellis Company, Two Tree Boys Wood. You have to look at when they're open, so you may have to leave a message. EU Tree is another one, Urban Lumber Furnishings, and then Green Waste Recycling Services. They accept all organic material and tree debris, and they accept it for free because they utilize that mulch as, again, power source. So it's another one that is a good one. That's out in Fayetteville. So just to go over some of the products that these guys are doing, I mean, you've got gorgeous countertops being created, rough cut wood. Same thing with this is a bench, checkerboards, chessboards. Wood's got to come from somewhere, and people love this kind of product. These, the wood blocks, right? Wood furniture, wood block, wood cutter, and some of these guys are making some incredible picnic table combinations. And it all starts off with this raw log that's been sawn with the mill. And there's a couple of different mills that are working too, but it's spotty, so you really have to call and make sure they're accepting wood. But that's some of the products that turned out. And then other products that we don't think about sometimes, these wood products turn into money, especially online. These wooden cube chairs are flying like hotcakes. Toddlers can sit in them, flip them over, and use them as a stool, step stool, brush my teeth, whatever. And it's a simple wooden cube design, made out of natural wood. Log benches. Why haul off your logs at the park when you can just cut it up, half cut it, and make a log out of it, a log bench? Kids love to play on that kind of stuff. There's another one called Soft Zone Tree Log Climber Set. They're selling half rounds of logs that have been smoothed and cut and varnished over, so there's no splinters, right? But the kids can use them as a balance beam, or they can flip them over and sit on it. So it's just a way to get stuff from not going to that landfill. It's readjusting how we think about that wood that's left over. What are we going to do with it? We've got to get out of the mindset of, well, we'll just take it and bury it. It's not going to do any great good. Log climbing structures. I'm sorry, when I was a kid, I'd have been all over this. It's just a bunch of logs that have been smoothed and then put some cargo netting on it so the kids can play, right? That's the kind of stuff we need to start doing with this. And kids, we've got a couple of them that are pseudo log structures. They're made to look like log, but they're made of something else. Just these logs. Why are you taking, PVC or whatever it is and covering it to make it look like a tree when you can actually take these tree parts, right? And start doing this stuff. And the kids love it. Now, my kid went to one of those private schools at Waldorf School of Atlanta, and constantly they were wanting to find people who were willing to make stuff like this. Because online it's not cheap to find these sawed and soft wood block toys for children, especially little guys. And it doesn't take much of your imagination to say, oh, this is a submarine or a boat, right? Here's your little log car, there's a racer, It's all fun. It's doing stuff with wood that doesn't mean it's going to the landfill, which is great. And people will pay for that kind of product. So just some things to, this one I absolutely love, but I had to put the center picture up. So we've all seen the stools. People make a little stool out of the cut firewood or fire pit, right? But they forget that you also have to treat that stuff. The next thing you know, it's growing conchs and mushrooms, right? Because that's what nature does. She's trying to break it down. So you've got to seal it. Well, people started doing all kinds of stuff. Not only do they do the old style where they just take the stump and treat it so that it's not going to rot, they started making rounds and crossing logs and using some polymer mix in there and really making them look cool. This one they carved out a little bit of cedar and gave it some design. This again is one that's been compacted. You guys might even recognize this. That looks like the top of one of those 4x4s, right? Or a 6x6. It's a weird little stool, but hey, it works. Somebody likes it. This I thought was unique as heck. They took the logs like these guys, stripped them, sanded them, and then put on glow paint. And they put this out of their fire pit, and they painted each one a different color. They got the kids involved, and everybody picked a color for their stool. And all they got to do is either hit it with UV light or let it sit during the day, and at night, boom, they've got this wonderful color. So this is the little process that they used for this project. But I mean, that's brilliant. I don't know too many people that wouldn't love that by their fire pit in the backyard, right? Other places, well, some people have less cushion than others, so they put cushion on the stumps, right? Because let's face it, if you don't have much cushion, it can get a little bit not too comfortable after a while. But I thought this was a great idea too. They attached and made tops for it. And this is actually in the living room where they went ahead and really went fancy with the logs, right? You can do the same thing with here. So I'm not suggesting anyone to buy exotic woods. We have a ton of it right here available for next to nothing. So, like I said, you can make money on your timber, right? North Georgia Timber, they actually buy timber in tracts. You don't know about that kind of stuff, where they're actually buying wood. But they also do, at the Atlanta Wood Yard, they purchase logs and pulpwood of all species. They're located in Mapleton, so they're not even that far. You have to drive almost out there anyway to the landfills. So might as well go out there with some decent logs, sell it and make your city or your county some money. And they do free recycling of that wood waste to turn it into power. So their motto is don't let wood go to waste, right? Which I thought was pretty nice. Yeah. So the wood yard purchases logs and pulpwood, like I said, of all species. They're convenient to Metro Atlanta. There's their hours, 7 to 5 p.m., Monday through Thursday, and Friday, I copied that right off their website, I let them know, 8 to 2. So it's Friday, not Friday. All products have to meet the specs with no exceptions. All ply logs must be free of scars, clumps, forks, splits, cat faces, ring knots, blue stains, insect damage, or rot. Because obviously we wouldn't want to utilize that to build stuff, and no hollow areas, right? Ply logs have to be trim, flush cut, and square cut, no broken ends or notches. That's what they're looking at for ply logs. And again, no crooks, rots, hollows, splits, same thing. Basically the same thing said all over again. And they really aren't fond of stuff with nails and staples and stuff. So if it's a tree that somebody was nailing signs up on, that's not going to be a candidate that you're going to take there. You can call, that's their number for current pricing. And it's just an example of the pulp wood, whether it's pine or hardwood, what their lengths are. They're looking for 12'6" to 22 feet in length. For hardwood, 12'6" is the same, but then your minimum diameters on their pulpwood. It's a minimum of 3-inch diameter. On their free wood chip dump sites, they have 3. They're not always come dump on us. And they have one in Mapleton on Riverview Road, one in Duluth on Buford Highway, and then one in Marietta on Fairview Street. So, you know, if you've got this packet, you can, you know, kind of take that with you and have those numbers handy. That's always a free place for your mulch. So there you go. Now, the last thing we're going to discuss is to kind of give you a taste of what's coming up in another one of our presentations, and that's upcycling wood. Not recycling, upcycling. What is upcycling, you ask? Well, it's getting that carbon back into the ground. You know, the upcycling uses products like biochar is one of them. So it upcycles used wood pallets in this instance and returns the carbon to the soil because you're using that carbonized wood pellet as a porous, stable, carbon-rich product that you use to amend your soils. And gee, I can't imagine why we might want to amend our soils here in our clay Piedmont area, right? Sometimes we hit those sites and they're just packed clay, especially on our construction sites. So this is a good way to add that back, and they're actually putting the carbon back in the soil, which is a really, really neat idea. And he's not buying any other type of wood right now other than the pallets because it has to be dry. So if he's taking fresh wood, he would have to then go through a drying process to be able to do a quick turn and use it and make it in biochar. But they're going to talk about this upcycling of wood in biochar products at one of our upcoming classes. So without further ado, I think that may be my last slide. It is. So basically, remember, the more we can do to reuse, reduce waste, and recycle, the better it's going to be for all of us. And I'll add to that by saying, if you're an arborist out checking trees, it is critical that you are really doing a good, thorough assessment and really explaining to your clients, does that tree really, really need to come down? Is that the only option? Or can we do retrenchment pruning? Can we start to save some of these trees that people get so afraid of, maybe because they just don't understand, you know, what can be done to modify that risk and take it lower? You know, it's something that we can do as arborists when we're talking to clients and looking at, instead of, you know, getting the money for taking down trees, maybe we're doing more to offset that by what can we do to prune and keep the trees? What can we do to treat and reduce this risk? You know, really talk it over with your client. You know, we've already got stuff in our paperwork that says that, you know, ultimately the only way to remove risk totally is to remove the tree. And, you know, your client is signing to that, but make sure in the same breath that we are saying, there are other options that are going to take this high risk and drop it to a moderate or low risk, or maybe a higher moderate risk to a low risk or no risk. You know, so there are other things we can do, which helps us not have all that stuff to go to the landfill to begin with. But when we get hit by storms, you know, unless you've done some preemptive, that's really about all we can do. You know, we can't control nature. We can just prepare for it as best we can. And when it happens, try and do stuff with that wood as opposed to burying it lower. So I hope that helps, and I'm happy to field any questions if there are any, online or in the room. Oh, that one.
Is there a place that comes and picks up pallets for recycling? Because the roadblocks I run into is I go to these seminars and everybody's going, oh, and they cost I've been trying for years to get different people to pick pallets up. And I've got a truckload of wires.
Well, you know, I would talk to this guy that I have on the site because he's actually doing it. So, you know, he's got some deals right now with different companies to supply him pallets once they're no longer good. I don't know how often that happens for him, but you know, if he can't take it, maybe he can give you an idea of somebody that can.
Sure.
And you know, even with the pallets, we're starting to make furniture and stuff out of that too. There's all kinds of, it's really getting our industry, especially to start thinking outside the box, right? What's the box? Cut it down, pack it up in the truck, grind it, take it to a landfill, or give it away as mulch. There's more to it than that, and we just have to start, say this again, branching out and trying new things. You know, there's going to be some entrepreneurial stuff coming up with some of these ideas. You know, if you can find investors that want to invest in that, you know, we're investing in ourselves. So just keep that in mind.
I do have a request to go back to the slide that lists the companies so that people can get a closer look at that. Also,
Is this gonna be available?
yeah, so also everybody, I will be sending this edited version out with the presentation to everybody registered by end of the week. So you will have access to that. And I also dropped in the chat for you guys the link to the biochar talk that she was talking about. Oh. And while she's pulling that slide up for you guys, also just keep in mind, I did drop the CEU sign-in sheet there in the chat. I think I've dropped it twice now, so grab that. Of course, if you do have any issues, just shoot me an email. I do have a couple of other questions while you guys are looking at this. So you may not know this, Kay. I sure don't. Are there any places in California that you know of to drop mulch and wood? You know, guys, we are in Georgia. So I'm not sure.
We didn't think about taking this to the US, but I'm sure, you know, there's gonna be places just like this out in California, because they're usually ahead of the curve on recycling. I hate to say that, but
35 years ago in California, there's a place accepting garden waste, tree waste. They would grind it, sell it to a paper mill, they use it to grind the paper. So there are places.
there are, there you go. And I know we got paper mills here in Georgia too. I don't know if they're still using lines. This is why you gotta get it out there and get networking, because you'll think of something, and she'll think of something, and he'll think of something, and that's how we get more and more information. So yeah, I would say go to your county, first start there, because your county jurisdictions usually have to do something with this, because they end up getting it at the landfill, and a lot of them have started this process. And if you just search, like I did, urban wood recycling or buying urban wood, a lot of times this information pops up. So it's being diligent and doing some searches in the area you're in.
Okay, and just to add to that, we had a lot of folks throw in to help you out with that question, Jared. So it looks like, Jared, so it's about $650, he said to the group, per semi-truck load to take biofuel in Rockland, California. So I did have another person, Sharon, actually mentioned that there's a company in California that uses palm fronds to make pig food. So it's there for sure. Lots of creative options. You just have to look for it.
Parts of pine tree are edible.
And let's
Heard that all the time growing up.
a question from Steve. Have you seen or done any research on cost of chipping and processing wood in-house versus paying someone to come in with a tub grinder?
I did not, but you know, that might be a good thing for you to try. I know we, like I said, have been talking about at least the firewood part of it. But there are also companies that rent those tub grinders. So, you know, you have enough of a wood pile amassed somewhere, that is also an option that you're gonna do that. Like I said, COBB partnered with TAG Vegetative Services, and that's what they do. They have a grinder, they just bring it out and grind that huge pile. So you had something to throw in?
Yeah, I did probably 3 acres, took in a bunch of wood, and then had a tub grinder come in and do that. Tub grinder is a high-risk piece of equipment. They catch on fire, there's a lot of building there. Chips, when they're processing, you don't have a way to get rid of those, they're a fire hazard.
They'll superheat, yep.
So you just gotta be careful.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, let's not make those kind of mistakes. So that is he's got a good point. It might be better to hire a service that actually does that as opposed to renting one. But, you know, there are companies that specialize in that. So let's say if you had a smaller jurisdiction, maybe you could work and network within the jurisdictions in your metro area to say, hey, we can all pool together, rent this company to come out and grind our stuff. You know, so that might be a way to do it. You know, we all pull together.
So another question from Ryan, any advice for softer woods? In the PNW, we have a lot of Douglas fir and other evergreens. We can't offer firewood because of air quality concerns. And thank you for the presentation, he says.
So, you're welcome. Softwoods are a little bit difficult, yeah, because you can't just burn those up in a fireplace. And I don't know, maybe that's something that you could make kids' toys out of. I mean, if it's a softer wood, you definitely can carve it. So that might be something that you're making those kind of blocks and covering them with a, you know, a polyurethane or something else for kids that may be allergic to that kind of stuff. You know, because we all have it, but you're covering it. So there's
culture, you could do softwoods for people culture that are probably break down faster.
Yep,
Urban farms, they don't care what it is, they'll use it.
yep,
They need hardwood to grow most mushrooms, but I think some mushroom species are,
do better on conifer.
yeah,
Yep.
mushroom farmers, urban farms, regular farms.
Yep. I mean, you can use, you know, some of these, strip the branching off and you've got a fairly decent log, it's gonna break down. But I mean, if you're looking at putting a garden setting in a floodplain area, like we've got a couple of food gardens that have started on vacant floodplain lots or even pollinator gardens, and you're wanting to trim the bed out so that you're not losing all your mulch and you can't afford all the stump blocks, or because it's a floodplain, you can't utilize that kind of man-made stuff. Take those logs, strip them down and use that as your edging, you know? It'll break down, but again, it's feeding the soil back. You're building that soil nutrient back into the soil. So there's a thought. Thanks, Kristen.
I'm a forestry instructor at a community college with a portable sawmill in California. I've noticed a lot of dead city trees throughout the cities in the Fresno area. Who in the cities would I contact to get those trees?
I would start with if you have a urban forester, tree warden, city arborist, county arborist, that's where I'd start. And if the county doesn't have anything, if it's a city jurisdiction, call your city council person and say, who handles this for our city? A lot of times if you go on the website, you can find, you know, the city arborist or tree permit information of all things. Well, that's going to take you back to that city forester, warden, arborist, whatever it is. And that's a good way to start. Sometimes it's done by the road department, roadways department, transportation department, depending on how they set it up. Some of them put their arborists under planning, some of them put them in development, some of them put them in public works. It just depends on how the jurisdiction has set it up.
All right, let's see here. I believe that is the last of our questions. There are a lot of thank yous. Everybody's very happy with your presentation. Any other final questions before we end for the day? I'm going to go ahead and drop that sign-in sheet again. It's right there in the chat for you, so it's fresh. I'll leave this live for a couple of minutes so that you guys can make sure to get your sign-ins in to ensure you get those CEUs.
All right. Everybody have a good day. One more thing before everybody goes, if you want to check it out, this is the new product called Perky Cave, and it's pervious. So it's also fire rated. You can drive on it, and it's like cement. So come up, take a look at it. It's a really neat little product. Perky Cave, like I said, it comes in all these wonderful designer colors. And it's just really neat little product. So all over there. Again, recycled.
Thanks, Kay. Thank you, everybody.